So one thing we have been covering here for quite a while is the massive role in the US and really global economy of the behemoth Amazon. So we're lucky to be joined this morning by an author of a new book about that corporate giant. The title is The Everything War: Amazon's Ruthless Quest to Own the World and Remake Corporate Power. The author is Dana Mattioli. She's a Wall Street Journal Amazon reporter, and she joins us now. Dana, great to meet you and welcome.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So tell us what is sort of the core thesis of the book.
Yeah, the book tracks Amazon's rise from this garage startup to really the most dominant force in corporate America, but the world writ large, its effects on the economy, job creation, competition, and how it's found itself in the center of this monopoly lawsuit because of the havoc it's wreaked across different industries. So it's an investigation to the company's business practices and the result of it having accumulated so much power.
One of the things that you go into, Dana, is about monopoly itself and the definition. I'm wondering if you could lay that out from our audience, because I know it's a bit complicated, but what's the effect of that and how regulators are looking at the power of Amazon?
Yeah, so these antitrust laws were first derived in the Gilded Age to stop the trusts like Standard Oil. And for years and years, decades, it was enforced to, allow competition, to protect smaller rivals, to compete. There was a change in the way that it was enforced in the 1970s and 80s, where the lens shifted to looking at these laws and competition through its effect on prices and efficiency. So if companies were offering low prices and they could be more efficient, there was a standard of letting that happen. And we stopped defending, David versus Goliath so vehemently. And that's sort of given rise to companies like Amazon. In the early days, in particular, it was known as this low-cost retailer. So as long as it was offering low prices for consumers, it was allowed to get away with lots of other types of behavior that would have been enforced in years past. And you see that throughout big tech, with Google and Apple and Facebook as well.
So one of the things that you point to, an anecdote that you have in the story, just so people can get like a finer point on the type of behavior you're talking about, is how when Amazon decided they wanted to go into the food business and have a private label, their approach was just to hire up some former Trader Joe's execs and be like, give us everything you have about what their top items are, and we're just going to copy them, and that's what we're going to do. Just tell us about that anecdote and how that connects to their typical business practices.
So in 2015, Amazon was launching this food brand called Wickedly Prime, and they wrote this paper internally to pitch it to management, and it said, we want to replicate the top 200 items at Trader Joe's. Problem was they didn't know what those items were. So they set out and hired this executive from Trader Joe's, didn't really tell her what she'd be working on. And her first week in Seattle, she stumbles across this very secretive conference room. It has brown paper covering the windows and the doors so no one could see inside. And she walks in and it's filled with boxes of Trader Joe's snacks, the exact area that she worked in at Trader Joe's. She starts getting alarmed. And from there, her manager starts pressuring her to give any sorts of documents she had retained from her employment at Trader Joe's, even though she has an NDA and whatnot. She caves to the pressure. She gives them an Excel spreadsheet with the top items from Trader Joe's, the sales volume over the course of a week. But then he just keeps hounding her. He says, I want the margins data. He screams at her. She cries in the middle of Amazon's headquarters. And someone reported this to legal. So the people that were involved did get let go. But everyone I've spoken to has said this was so indicative of the pressure people at Amazon are under to perform. They need to improve their numbers. They need to hit their targets because at the end of the year, the bottom 6% gets cut. And that has effects on the type of behavior that play out across the company. And this is not an isolated incident by any means.
Right. Well, and in this instance, they didn't have access to the Trader Joe information, and it's not something that you can get publicly. So their approach was, all right, we're going to hire this person and we're just going to steal the information and then we're going to copy it. But in lots of cases, they have this giant marketplace with lots of independent sellers. They can see exactly which products are selling really well and performing really well among their customers. They can replicate those products, and then they can use their own algorithm to make sure that when a shopper is looking for something like that product, it's not that original independent seller's product who gets pushed. It's their business line that gets pushed so that they get to reap the benefits of every aspect of this marketplace.
And they've been doing that for years. The book gets into details about how, first of all, Amazon has unprecedented access to data, not just from its sellers, but its rivals, its partners, that you see time and time again in really shocking ways. Amazon uses that information to undercut them and to reverse engineer their hits and claim it as their own. On the private label side, they were spying on their sellers, taking their data about what's selling well and then reverse engineering it in Shenzhen and just putting some of these sellers out of business. But we also saw that on the VC arm. Amazon, because they're so big, they're this many tentacled octopus with such big market share everywhere. Founders come and pitch them on an acquisition or funding. And so many of the people I spoke to came out of those meetings saying, was that a deal-making talk or was that corporate espionage?
Wow, fascinating. Dana, so in the future, what do you expect now that Amazon is already, the second largest employer in the United States? Their power is only increasing. They are eventually going to brush up against actual legislative action or either the FTC. Where do you see the future going for Amazon right now?
So the FTC filed a lawsuit against Amazon saying that you're a monopoly. It will go to court in 2026, so that's still some times away from here. But what's kind of interesting to me is that they don't seem at all rattled. Andy Jassy, the CEO right now, has told his deputies that we could be a $10 trillion company. Their general counsel, a few weeks after this lawsuit was filed against Amazon, got on stage in an all hands and was asked about his outlook for the monopoly lawsuit. And he said, haters are going to hate, we're going to shake it off. So he just quoted, Taylor Swift. So they really don't seem fazed.
All right.
Or to have any shame about cringy comments like that. Dana, my last question for you is just to give the other side. There's a lot of people who love Amazon who are like, Amazon's amazing and they're super convenient. And guess what? They did amazing and they grew to such size because people really like what they had to offer. And it's super cool that I can get, my toilet paper delivered next day or whatever. And, something I saw you got questioned about before. You got a lot of independent sellers who may be in some small town in Kansas or wherever, and now they're able to each reach this global marketplace. Isn't that glorious for them? So what's your response there?
I would say for consumers, we should be thinking about at what cost. So what was very telling to me is I went back to some of Amazon's earliest employees from the 1990s, the people that helped build this machine. They've become fabulously wealthy from their stock options at the time, right? I mean, they're living really well. And I've gone back to them to say, how do you feel about the company now? So many of them have canceled their Prime accounts. A lot of them avoid Amazon wherever they can. And some of them have even said, I feel like I helped build a monster. They have regrets about this. They worry about its impact on innovation, Main Street, the economy. I mean, if you look at just the jobs in retail, and in 2018, there's a net loss of 700,000 retail jobs, according to one study. And then between 2001 and 2017, 500,000 department store jobs were evaporated. That's 18 times as many as that were lost in coal mining, to give you an example, right?
Wow.
And that's just one of their tentacles. And, when I speak to those CEOs, the mall retailer CEOs, the CEOs of the department stores, the other retailers, they point directly at Amazon.
Really a lot to think about. I recommend everybody go and buy the book. We'll have a link in the description. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to have you, Dana. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.